Hey YouTube, ladies and gents, how's it going, y'all? It's Sparky Marky Mark here, and I'm gonna do a little shout out birthday for Steve Dash, or other words, his birth name, Steve Dashwiz, I believe. So if I butcher their name. Um, so if you know, yesterday was Friday the 13th, and today is Steve's birthday, and this year he would have been about 76 today, because unfortunately he died at 74 in December of 2018. Rest in peace, man. He was credited as the stunt double Jason. Really, he was known as the real Jason because he replaced Warrington Gillette, of course, because he wasn't a stuntman as he was promised. That would be Warrington Gillette. But in my own opinion, I rather say two guys play Jason. And then the unmasking reveal, yes, Steve Dash played the rest. And Steve Dash and Warrington Gillette both play Jason, so it's kind of complicated, but certain scenes, yes. And then the unmasking was, of course, Warrington Gillette. So two guys placed Jason in part two. But I was very bummed to hear he passed when I heard the words R.I.P. Steve Dash. Really, I was so shocked. Man, oh man, I was pissed. But he started out career serving in the Korean War. He was a veteran, and he also was. What else did he do in his career? He served in the military, then was in the New York Police Department. Then, of course, after that, he was retired due to a crash because he was trying to save a person who was having a heart attack. With that, I want to leave you a link in the description box for the Steve Dash husband, father, grandfather memorial documentary, which I've been living as usual, and also for the link for Friday the 13th Vengeance. You cannot get yourself a copy right now. I don't see it anywhere at the moment, but you can see it online, and it's great, and it's his last movie, and it's dedicated in his memory. And you have here as well, in his memory, you do hear some other interviews from the past to those who met him and knew him. Everyone talks about he was a sweetheart guy, a great guy, this and that, and he's missed by everyone. His first film was in 1980. He played a policeman in The Jazz Singer. That film would happen to be Lawrence Oliver and Neil Diamond, of course. Okay, and then the next film would be Nighthawks. He plays as ATAC Man, ATAC Man. I believe he's like a SWAT team kind of guy. With this film, Nighthawks, with Sylvester Stallone and Rutger Hauer and Billy D. Williams. And he was the stuntman, and who introduced him to the world of stunts was a fellow stuntman, Cliff Cutney, I believe that was his name. Yeah, and he and him became buds, of course. And he wanted to do acting, but no. Hey, not to worry. Heck, you can do stunts. Really? Stunts? Yeah, Cutney, I believe that was his name, if I pronounced his name or butchered it. But, yeah, here it is. Cutney, that's his name. Yep, and he was the one who got Steve the gig for Friday 13 Part 2. And Cliff Cutney did do some good stunts for other films. Some that I may be familiar, some I'm not familiar with. But he did the stunts for Running Scared. I remember that film. But all in all, it's for Steve Dash. So he got him hooked on stunts, and he also played in Miss 45. He plays policeman in that movie. What else is involved in this movie? Zoe Lund and Abel Ferrara, of course, but I'm not sure who that is. But I've heard of Abel Ferrara, but he went on to become a film director, I believe, if I'm wrong. Then was in part two, which there are some crazy stories behind it. You can check it on the documentary. And I did mention that Warrington Gillette played Jason in some scenes and throughout most of the film. Steve Dash played Jason. Then he was as policeman again in Rivkin Bounty Hunter, which was a TV film starring Harry Belafonte and Verna Bloom. Of course. This is the next one. Then was Rent Control, policeman at Suicide. He played in Rent Control, which that's what he's credited as. It's an Italian movie and starring Brent Spiner and Elizabeth Stack. Then was Alone in the Dark, that came out in 1982 as Dr. Barkin. Dr. Barkin. And it was directed by Jack Scholler, who of course went on to direct The Hidden and the low-budget film Arachnid, and then also went on to direct A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2. And this film starring Jack Palance, Donald Pleasance, Martin Landau, and those are probably the only ones I know, but I've never seen that particular film. Then was One Down, Two to Go as Show Thug. And that one is with Fred Williamson and Jim Brown and Jim Kelly and Richard Roundtree and Joe Spinell. Of course, he's in this film. Oh, and it's a story about a pair of tough cops go after the mob who jinxed their martial arts tournament and injure their buddy. So yeah, and this film was directed by and written by as well from Fred Williamson. I gotta take a look at that movie. Then he was in the TV series as policeman in an episode called Death in Texas. Then was Superboy as Suited Man Number 1, and then in an episode called Johnny Casanova and the Case of the Secret Serum. Meet Mr. Max Pix. He played Mugger in that episode as well from 89 to 90. Then was in the 13th Tazameti as Joey G, in which that came out in 2005, of course, and I believe this is sort of a mob kind of movie. Then played hotel guest in Julie and Julia. Of course, coincidentally, starring Amy Adams, Meryl Streep. And that was the year I was done with high school, like finito with high school. And then was in a short film called Trust Me, that same year in 2009, in which this one he plays a mobster named Frank DeLeo, I believe, just to be clear. And it's a 30-minute short film, and he did spoke like a true mobster. Then was playing a character named Mac in Mr. Hush. And this is sort of a throwback, and it starts Brad Lorre. I remember that actor. He played Michael Myers in Halloween Resurrection. Stephen Jeffries he played Evil Ed in in Fright Night. Evil Ed, of course. And then Steve Dash is in this film playing Mac. Then was Emerging Past, playing Detective Voorhees. Coincidentally, he played Jason Voorhees in Part 2. What a coincidence. But this said it was there, but released a video on March 3rd of 2015. Originally shot in 2011. Directed by Thomas J. Churchill. This one stars Brooke McCarter and Stephen Jeffries again, and Tony Moran, who played Michael Myers, age 21, in the original Halloween film. The director, Thomas J. Churchill, played evil in that movie, but I've never seen any of these since I didn't know much that Steve Dash did in his career. Then that same year in 2011, then in 2011 again, he was in a film called Hemo, which is a story about vampires, and he played the role of neighbor in that movie. Then was Stegamore, Stage More, I believe. I don't even know if it was a series, but it sure as heck didn't mention anything when it was released. But he played the role of Dash Edwards in this film. Then, of course, was Captain Cronin in Gunner's Rift, about a ruthless hitman's path to destruction while surviving the mirror of crime and corruption. Of course. And the character of Gunner, Joey DeMonto, was played by Rick Bourget. To be clear, if I didn't butcher that one. Then, of course, My Friends in 2012. Oh, this one's a very good one. Doesn't star anyone that I would know. But he plays Chuck in this film. And, of course, in a short film in 2013 called Conclusion. Of course. He doesn't even play a character, or he's just a mobster. Who knows these days? Then played Detective Voorhees again in Merging the Past director's cut, I believe. Then his last film he was involved in as Sheriff Riolotti, Vengeance. Friday 13 Vengeance. And this time CJ Graham playing Elias Voorhees as Jason Voorhees' father, and Jason Brooks playing Jason Voorhees. Alrighty. And writer director Tom McLaughlin plays the gravekeeper Walt. Of course, and of course the characters specifically that the people of Vengeance wrote specifically for Steve Dash as Sheriff Jason Riolotti. In the scene of the crime where he's being talked by a reporter, he says, "Listen, kid, I'm the real Jason." Yeah, that's where he says it, because we know he played part 2 Jason. Ignore that. So this was his last movie, of course, that he did along with his son Steve Jr. And everyone was very pleased and enamored to see him in person, of course. And he did do stunts, which one of those movies was with the Sylvester Stallone Nighthawks, and then he was the stunt double for William Antherone, which he was under credit, but I didn't know until now, with fellow stuntman actor Tom Morga as well in Ghostbusters. But he was the stunt driver for this one, New York as Steve Dash Wazowski. He was the stunt driver for Night Shift in 1982, which was directed by Ron Howard, starring Henry Winkler, Michael Keaton, and Shelley Long. Yeah, and Bobby DeCicco's in this film, and Joe Spinell. Coincidence. And then he was credited with 11 stunts to his name. Ghostbusters, doubling as the Walter Peck character played by William Antheronton. Then it was in Turk 182, which stars Timothy Hutton, Robert Ulrich, and Kim Cantrell, I believe, and Robert Culp, and Darren McGivern. And of course, Peter Boyle, James Tolkien, and Paul Sorvino, and Stephen Keats. Some good caster in this film, no lying. Dick O'Neill's in this film playing Powerhouse Chief. And then what else was he involved with? 9.5 Weeks with Mickey Rourke and Kim Basinger, of course, and David Margolis, coincidentally, who was in Ghostbusters. Some good cast here as well. And what else? He was in Wise Guys that year in the mid-'80s, which has Danny DeVito, Joe Piscopo, and Harvey Keitel. And Dan Hedea's in this film. Oh, that's great. And Frank Vincent playing Louis Fertui, If I butcher their name, correct me. But also Frank Vincent voiced Salvatore Leone in Grand Theft Auto 3 and Grand Theft Auto Liberty City Stories. Then, of course, he played Sweet. He was the stunts. He did stunts for Sweet Liberty, which has Alan Alda, Michael Caine, and Michelle Pfeiffer in it. Then in 1987, he was involved in a low budget film called Equalizer 2000, of course, and Richard Norton, and it was directed by Cirio H. Santiago, which of course shot in the Philippines because this is a low budget film, and I believe this was done by the king of low budget creature features, Roger Corman. But he also did, how do you say, post apocalyptic films. I don't know if he did produce that movie. Probably he did. And it has Richard Norton, Corny Well, and Robert Patrick is in this film. And it's not a bad film. It's a great film. And what else he did in the other years before that? Trust Me, which was a short. He was a stunt coordinator. He was a stunt performer in Equalizer 2000. Was the stunt coordinator for Mr. Hush and Hemo. And the last film he did was Vengeance. So this is one of the films I have. I'm planning on getting Equalizer 2000 soon. This is the deluxe edition with the lenticular slip. And it's too bad I won't get to meet Steve Dash in person because I was very shocked to hear he passed, and he will be missed. Rest in peace, Steve Dash. Amen. And also, I'm gonna leave you. Also, I'm gonna be leaving links in the video description with the links for the Never Hike in the Snow. It's still going on for now. Maybe expires tonight or tomorrow. Better get your hands on a copy right now. Also, we got till tomorrow afternoon to get. You also have till tomorrow afternoon to get your hands on a copy of the In Search of Darkness, the definitive documentary on 80s horror documentaries, which is only 80s horror that we got from that era. I pre-ordered my copy when it was on sale last year. So you guys better get your copy right now before they go out like pancakes. Seriously, better get it, man. It's a flash sale. It started as of Friday the 13th, and it ends tomorrow afternoon. So you better get it while you can. These are only exclusives, yo. And I'm also going to provide you a link for another Indiegogo project, this time for Freddy vs. Jason Dreamscape. So shouts to the people at Friday 13 Network. Shouts to the people at Search of Darkness, the definitive documentary for 80s horror documentary. And also for shouts to Steve Dash, of course. And also shouts for CJ Graham as well. And Ted White. And also, I'm going to provide you a link for the Timeless Watch channel. Shouts to you, man. There's like, Italy right now is literally so on lockdown because of what's happening with the coronavirus. So be safe, y'all, and God bless you. This is Sparky Marky. Before I leave, subscribe to my channel to be notified of my latest uploads and other things. So anyway, this is Sparky Marky Mark, and I'm out of here, and be safe out there. Peace.